Whoa. So the good folks over at Hooded Horse decided to give me an early key for Norland, a city builder and colony builder that takes a lot of inspiration from Crusader Kings. Unsurrender, you fools. Now this game is not easy by any means, so it took a little bit for us to get the hang of it. The first run kind of ended like this. This seems good. And the second one, well, it ended like this. We only have one chance to not die. I guess this is what I get for recruiting all the local bandits after beating them up. But on our third attempt, we got some really good stories. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. And it started a lot like this.
Nearly 200 years have passed since the end of the devastating religious war.
The man with the wonderful beard is Cactus. He is our king. This is his eldest daughter, Lily. The second eldest, Petunia. And we could never forget Marigold. This family owns this plot of land, aptly named Green Plot. Something plot though, right? And just like that, they get to explore their brand new home. Can I just go bribe somebody immediately? Without wasting any time, we're gonna need food, so let's plant some rutabagas. And just as the peasants start getting to work, the king has to come over and inspect the work being done.
The best game ever made, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong.
As he begins giving orders, he realizes, oh, they're upset. We might want to give them some housing. And just like that, a few plots for homes are appointed, along with the necessary altar to worship at our Holy Mother Sophia, and burn the skulls of our enemies, of course. The noble houses needed rearranging, so the fancier houses got picked up and moved. No idea how that works, but it works. Moments later, the first trader arrives, and the beginnings of trading with the church ensue. Of course, their motives are not always on their side. The king knew this, but he takes part anyway, using his early fortunes to purchase rings, which is how he keeps his friends happy, and how he plans to please his future wife. It's unknown what happened to his past wife. Perhaps she's in the pile of skulls by the altar. Because Cactus keeps many secrets, and they say you should never trust a king. "Oh, what's this?" said the king. "An eligible bachelorette? She will cost a pile of holy rings, but anything to please a potential wife of the king." She takes the new name Tulip to blend in with the family, and the king begins his courting. Soon after obtaining her lodgings, it becomes clear that she is better with words than the king. Rumor has it the king doesn't even know how to read. She immediately instructs them to begin constructing a library, somewhere where she could study and increase the productivity of the small town. Soon after, orders are set, and the library begins construction. And that appears to have been enough for the potential queen, as shortly after, the king and queen are wed. And don't waste time getting into bed. For daughters won't do for potential heirs.
Woo!
However, close by, trouble was brewing. Their friendly neighbors to the northeast were under threat of vassalage. Green Plot wanted to interfere, but their armies were not ready yet. But as Tulip bartered and ordered the church to give them better prices on their rich products, another lord has arrived, looking for a place to stay. A potential soldier with great skills in combat. Somebody who could defend them and help protect this land, keeping their hostile neighbors at bay. But it was already too late. So this place asked me for assistance against these guys. So I went and hired a bunch of mercenaries, then went to go assist them right now, and they've just been captured completely. Their friendly eastern neighbors had become the vassals of the warmongers. And thus begins the story of Big Joshua the Jealous. A tale of war and deeds and jealous greed. And we are going to go raid this village. Raid the village. The king began giving Joshua orders to raid the local villages, friendly and aggressive alike. The king did not discriminate, and while the king stayed home hunting wolves for sport, bark, 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 Joshua risked his life and limb and his men on the battlefields. It was like the king thought this was some kind of game, but would refuse to do it by his own hand, and instead make Joshua be the hand that did so. One of my guys immediately surrendered. The goddamn coward! Like, quit surrendering. However, we have better gear than they do, and probably worse skills. Our guys are less bloodied than their guys, so I guess that's a good sign. this guy over here made a huge mistake. Joshua stabbing a man in the back. It's now 4v4. I don't think our guy's dead because he's just snapping. Okay, he stood up. That's a problem. But come on, Joshua, don't you fail me. They're literally unarmored. Come on, just smack him in the head. It's not that hard. Well, now they've surrendered, even though they've stabbed one of my guys enough that he doesn't want to fight anymore. There you go, he stood back up. Crap, I have to pay him. They're going to come back over and fight the last guy, and it looks like they've surrendered, and we now have slaves to sell. I mean, prisoners. Back home, Tulip was teaching herself how to plant and sow and harvest rye seeds, for their conquests in the local region had caused trade to become rather difficult. Keeping up and becoming self-sufficient was an important thing that they had to achieve. And in all of the fighting, Joshua was becoming haggard. It was becoming difficult for him to day in and day out leave the place and go and fight the unruly bandits that were rising up due to them overtaxing the local towns. It was their right to, of course, however, it was becoming a lot for poor old Joshua. He had been alone for a long time and was beginning to eye the king's wife. Tulip and her beautiful body, what a young beauty she was. But the orders continued for Joshua, and they increased in intensity, as the king sent off a messenger to inform the neighboring city that they were going to become Greenplot's vassal. Of course, it was rejected, and Joshua knew this meant that he would have to do the dirty work. Okay, so these guys are all heading up there, which is good. Okay, so this guy is going to go kill these. Oh, man, I wanted that. But Joshua had a request. Before he were to leave to vassalize the neighboring town of Great Mist to the west, he wanted promise that he would get to marry one of the king's daughters. They were young beauties and close to the age where they would marry. The king scoffed. Never had he heard such an outlandish request, and said that if Joshua were to join the family, he had to earn a township of his own, and denied the demand immediately. Joshua was dismayed and heartbroken and angered by this, and to prove his anger, Joshua took home a peasant and decided he would kill everyone and burn their city to the ground. Okay, so it's a singular dude. One of my guys already surrendered. It's us, group of 8, versus 4 and 1. So it's 5v3 now. And then this guy is just, he's quitting. Joshua taking another nap. It's okay, he'll be back in a sec. It seems that Big Josh has had enough of this nonsense. And is deciding to retreat. Fortunately, now it's 3v2 for them, so that's good for them, but bad for us. I'm going to load a save file. But it was only a bad dream. A premonition in the night. He had another chance. Okay, we'll let Zula be up top. We'll try and get these guys first this time. So we kind of just immediately got surrounded last time, which seems bad. Okay, so we'll let Joshua sit at the back for a little bit. All right, now you can charge in. All right, well, we didn't lose one before we even got into the fight this time, so this seems to be going better. Well, we've lost one. And Joshua's fighting with Zula, but their archer is down, I think, which I feel like gives us a much bigger fighting chance. Yeah, see, this is the way this fight was supposed to go. I think what I screwed up on, and that's just lack of, like, knowledge of how fight... Oh, no, Angus stood back up. That's terrifying. And I think that's just lack of knowledge of how this combat system works, is this counts as us surrounded now. Okay, see, now they run away. See, we've just got Angus left, and we have a significantly larger army this time. Right, well, we just lost another one. It's just, this guy's the problem. Holy shit, Angus is shrunk. Good fucking Christ, Angus is shrunk. I mean, I get it, he's a king, but like... Because my king is just big, fat, and lazy, doesn't really leave his house very often, hunts wolves occasionally, and bones his wife.
To get at the nut.
The enemy squad commander has been killed. We've killed Angus. And with that, what Joshua had promised to do had been completed. The city had been abandoned and burned to the ground. The king was furious. Joshua simply laughed and said, "I needed what I was owed." The king swore unless Joshua earned the money and rebuilt the town himself, the king would never provide him with a wife. But Joshua took the threat in stride, for he was all right sleeping with the peasants at night.
To get at the nut.
And the glory of battle and the loot that was gained from it was beginning to outweigh the need for the ownership of land. But the timing couldn't have been worse. The neighbors had decided that green plot shouldn't exist on that piece of land anymore, and began to dig them up by the roots so that their flowers could not get any nutrients from the soil. Fortunately, most of them have, bows and ties, which makes them not super effective against five guys. I don't know why I'm rhyming here. It doesn't make any sense to do so. Yay! Okay. Okay. Cactus. Whose idea was that? Uh-oh. Well, we've got a problem. Spies from the neighboring regions had angered the peasants by telling them that their food supply would soon be cut off. These messengers were enough to poison the well of their own society, and Greenplot began to riot. Joshua and his men saw an opportunity and began fighting, trying to take the throne by force, killing the king and queen, and imprisoning his daughters, so he and his men could rule this plot of land as he sees fit. We can never be friends again, Joshua. I was trying to find you a wife. What a goddamn shame. Chat, this game is fantastic. I'm having a lot of fun. Joshua revolted against us alongside of all of the slaves, which I am shocked and appalled by. So now it is my remaining mercenaries and zealots, King Cactus, Queen Tulip, versus the almighty Joshua. This is, I think, this game's equivalent of a tantrum spiral. How's his injuries doing over here? It's literally just Joshua left. Right up until his dying breath, Joshua would grit through his teeth, smiling, saying, "You asked for this," trying to put Greenplot in a position where they could never recover, regardless of his chances of success, hoping the neighbors would encroach and invade and crush them under their foot. They're trying. Joshua's passed away, my friends. You could have been our warlord. You could have been great, Joshua. You could have been powerful. We were going to give you a city after one last job. They proceeded to burn his body alongside of the rest of the skulls to Lady Sophia, and the zealots and citizens and serfs of the Great Green Plot lived on after cleaning up the bodies. But for how long? Well, for that you'd have to read some history and remember the great times of Norland.